Today I will teach you an easy opening to play for black that is both solid and aggressive. It is of course the French defense. After they play d4, which is the most common move, now we will attack the center. If they trade pawns, then this is good for you. This is called the exchange French, and it is very easy for you to play and basically anything is good. What I recommend is that you bring your knight to f6. White makes pretty much any move and then you play bishop d6. Again, random move from white and then you castle. In these exchange French positions, try and castle as quickly as possible. Then, put your rook on the open e-file. Then you want to pin this knight with your bishop. Play c6 to solidify your center and to let your queen out on the queen side. Finally, this knight will go to d7, and you will maneuver it to g6. If they push the pawn on e5, which is the most common move, it looks terrible for you. But this is actually good and white needs to be careful. This position already has an over 50% win rate for black. Push this pawn forward and attack d4. Taking is a horrible move as you can develop your bishop and capture the e5 pawn later in the game. They will defend with c3. Place your knight on c6 to put more pressure on d4. They will defend with knight f3. Then, you will play queen b6, adding even more pressure on d4. The most common move here is bishop d3. This pawn looks free, but it's a trap. Taking the pawn results in you losing your queen, and that's not very good. Which is why taking this pawn twice is a scam. Take the pawn once but then play bishop d7 instead, and now the pawn is actually hanging. If you can't figure out why, then after a move that doesn't defend the pawn, such as castles, which is the most common move, there is no discovered check after this sequence of moves as your bishop blocks the king from the white bishop, meaning you are up a pawn. The second most common move here is bishop c2 so that the white queen defends the d4 pawn. By the way, if at any point your opponent plays bishop e3 to defend d4, this loses defense of the b2 pawn and you can take it with your queen and tear apart his queen side. So the dark squared bishop is stuck defending this pawn. Anyways, after bishop c2 play knight b4. There are many moves for white to play here, but your plan is the same: eliminate the light square bishop and make your opponent's light squares very weak, put a rook on c8, bring your kingside knight to e7 and then f5 to attack the d4 pawn, castle, then expand on the queenside and put pressure on the d4 pawn. As you can see from the Lichess database, black is doing really well in this position, with a 57% win rate. Finally, going all the way back, what if they defend the e4 pawn with either knight d2 or knight c3? I recommend you just take the pawn and then play bishop d7. After they play a move, then move the bishop to c6. After that, play knight d7 and then bring the other knight to f6. They will most likely trade, and once you reach a similar position to this there are many options for you. You could develop safely and keep your position solid and very easy to play. You could bring the queen out and move it to either side of the board to attack. You could also trade on f3 and then trade the queens to get into an equal endgame. The choice is yours. And if you think that just getting into an easily drawn position is a bad idea, it isn't as black. Black starts out at a slight disadvantage as white gets to move first, so equalizing out of the opening for black is a good result. One other thing. Don't castle if there's a Greek gift sacrifice. If you don't know what that means, then have fun when you haven't moved these pawns. This bishop is staring directly at h7 and the queen and the knight are like this. I'll make a video later explaining the Greek gift sacrifice in full detail. Anyways, that's it for the French defense, and I hope you'll use it in your games to shut down e4 players. Hope you enjoyed. Goodbye for now.